everybody. My name is Violet Lim, and I'm the CEO and co founder of Lunch actually. Welcome to this episode of A Date with Singapore's Cupid. So the reason why more and more people are going online is because apps are very easy. It's basically just in our pocket, right? It's on the phone and it's accessible 24/7. So when you can't sleep or you're like waiting for the bus or the MRT, it's just very accessible. And of course, there's a huge pool of people who's online as well. So I think those are some of the great perks. But on the other hand, I think some of the challenges that people have encountered is that, like what I've mentioned, there's no verification. So basically anybody and everybody could be online. Someone could say that, like they are 30 years old, but for all you know, like the person might be 20 years old. And this actually happened to someone I just met a week ago. So this lady was sharing with me that she has sworn off dating apps. And I say, why? And then she's like, oh, because, I met this guy and then he said that he is 35. And then when I met him, he's actually 45. And then I'm like, oh, wow, okay. and then and then the guy was like, I didn't lie to you. The photo I put online is really 10 years ago. So she was really very disheartened. So I think but having said that, definitely I think for all singles who's looking for love out there, it's very important to look out for the platform that's most suitable for you. Because I think when it comes to online dating, I've mentioned, what are the great points, but at the same time it is very based on photo as well. So I think sometimes, some singles have said that, okay, maybe I'm not that photogenic, or like so that would actually be a bit challenging. So I think ultimately do try out apps, but do be careful, because like I mentioned, there are, like all sorts of people online. So always meet at a public place. That's very, very important. And also let someone else know that you are, going on a date, and maybe even check on you, like, in the first 5-10 minutes, maybe just give you a call or give you an SMS to make sure that everything is okay. As much as people would think that, women, when it comes to finding a guy, like a lot of people would think that, is it that women are looking for someone who has very high income, or like someone who is very highly educated, the truth of the matter is that in a survey that we have done, so every year that we would actually do survey, women have actually mentioned that the thing that is most attractive to them is actually confidence and how the guy carries himself. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because, like, just because the person is doing really well right now doesn't mean that he will really do well forever, because things happen in life, right? And someone who might not be doing as well, like let's say financially right now, doesn't mean that they will never do well as well. So I think just a quick tip for guys out there, like, don't get so hopped up about the number, don't get so hopped up like, oh, I'm not earning enough and things like that. The other things that, of course, like women are also looking out for is the I would say their character, their personality. So that's also something that women are big on, and I think we all are big on. The other one that is really important to women, that sometimes maybe it's not as obvious, is height is actually something that is very important to women. So I do have quite a lot of Singaporean women coming to me and say that I'm looking for someone who is at least 1.75 and above. I think usually it's because it's about sense of security again. So, really going back to confidence and how you carry yourself. On the guy side, fortunately or unfortunately, first impressions is actually a big thing for guys. I think, like in every survey that we have done, like definitely that is one of the first thing that come out. But again, to be fair, I think, like a lot of the guys that we have spoken to, because obviously we have like interviewed like thousands and thousands of men, it's not as if they are looking for like Miss Universe or like model or actress, but I think it's really about the first impression. Is this person taking care to just put their best foot forward when they go on a date? So I think that's a big one. And men do place more importance, like I think, in terms of outlook. So I think someone maybe not overweight, I think that's also something that men have shared. But the other point that men have shared as well is really someone who is nurturing. So I think women will be like, huh, what do you mean by nurturing? I think ultimately I always say to women, like when men go on date, or like when men like, get married and be part of a household, I think the last thing they need is just like someone who is constantly like on their case, and like just constantly needing to have the last say. So I always tell women, like, when we go on date, it's a date, it's not a debate. So it's not necessary to just constantly, like, asserting ourselves. I'm not saying being assertive is not good, but it doesn't need to be like for every single sentence. So I think nurturing someone who is caring, someone who is compassionate. So those are some of the things that Singaporean men are looking for as well. So how do you know if you're dating the right person? Honestly, I get this question a lot. I think a lot of singles are always wondering, like, okay, I've spent like maybe a couple of months or maybe even a couple of years with this person, but I'm not sure whether I want to move on to the next stage. I'll just share a story. So my then boyfriend, now husband, so in his university school days, he was sharing with me that he was chasing like maybe different girls, and then there was this particular girl that he really liked. And then he then imagined that, like, let's say 50, 60, 70 years down the road, like after he's married to this girl, he actually said that he have a very cold sinking feeling in his heart to think that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be with this girl then. So I think to him immediately, like, that was a big red flag. Like, he's like, okay, maybe this is really not the girl for me. And then subsequently, when we started dating, so he asked himself the same question as well. And then he said that when he thought about it, like, he really have a very warm feeling. And then he was like, wow, I'm actually looking forward to that. So honestly, I think what I'm just trying to say is that there is no like hard science to it. I think intuition is a big part of it. And I think intuition, it's also like what we know about the person, because I think after you have dated this person for a while, like that you might be picking up certain things, like your body, like everything is just picking up different cues from this person. So I think this question, like that my then boyfriend, now husband, has asked is a great question to ask yourself. Like, don't just look in the now, like look into the future, because like now everything is great, we are young, we are, everything is working, everything is great. But just imagine like maybe 50, 60 years down the road where everybody is like the same lah. That's why sometimes I also tell guys, like, yes, outer appearance is important, but honestly, like when we are all 70 and 80, we are all just going to be like saggy and wrinkled. So everybody's just going to be the same. So if you just imagine like by then, like you're still with this person, like how do you feel about it? Like then you maybe will start to realize that there are actually a lot of things that you're not so compatible. There are really a lot of things that maybe, like might not work out. So those would be the red flags that you want to look out for. I think if you're asking yourself like whether this relationship is working or not, like that's already a big red flag. Because if things are working out, chances are you're not asking yourself this question. But of course, when you're asking yourself this question, it also doesn't mean that this relationship is not salvageable. So I think first and foremost, like it's very important to know that is this a toxic relationship? Okay, I think that's a big one, because you do not want to be suffering in a toxic relationship. And a lot of times toxic relationship is not just about being physically abusive, because obviously if like the person is physically abusing you, that's it, you really should walk out of this relationship straight away. But sometimes the abuse is like very subtle. It's like I think a lot of you might have heard of the term gaslighting. Like, so this person constantly says certain things that after a while you start to doubt yourself, you start to undermine yourself, you start to just you don't even know who you are anymore, and you constantly think that, oh, it must be my fault. So those are some of the danger signs that you are in a toxic relationship. So I think it's important to look out for that. Okay, so let's say like you're not in a toxic relationship, you're not in an abusive relationship. Okay, then start looking out for, so why are you starting to ask yourself whether you should continue or you should not? So it could be different things. So for one, it could be like you just feel that you don't have much to talk about anymore. Like you want to talk about A, the person is constantly talking about B, or like maybe the person always want to do C and you always want to do D. But this is also not something that says that you shouldn't be in this relationship, because again, when we do our matchmaking, like one of the last things we look at is like mutual interests and hobbies. Because as much as interests and hobbies are really important, but I always say to people, I say, okay, like let's say you enjoy scuba diving, the other person don't enjoy scuba diving, but he or she can always just wait for you on the boat, and read a book and do yoga or something, right? There's always ways to work around it. But I think the red flags usually would be things that are surrounding compatibility of values. So for example, you are someone who is like super family oriented, so to you it's like it's very important that you visit your family like, you know, a couple of times a week or even at least once a week, and maybe the other person is just like, it's fine, I don't see them for 3 months or 3 years, that sort of thing. So these are some situations that might get challenging, or maybe even like compatibility when it comes to religion, compatibility when it comes to managing of finance. So I think when you start to see things that, you know, all of these red flags, again, not to say that it cannot be resolved, you know, you just need to talk about it. And I think, you know, once you raise up some of these challenges that you are facing, and then have an open conversation about it, and then see how the other person react. I mean, obviously, if the other person is very open, you know, like willing to talk it out and find ways to deal with it, then, you know, obviously that should be a go ahead. But if the other person is just very reluctant and not willing to even put in the work right now to work through some of these challenges, then that should also be a red flag that you might want to move on. Because I think a lot of challenge is that a lot of couples, when they go into marriage or they go into settling down, they spend a lot of money on like preparing that beautiful wedding. But I always say I wish people spend as much time or resources on making sure that they are ready for a marriage, not the wedding. Because, you know, the wedding is just the beginning, but the marriage is really the one that is going to last for a lifetime. So some of the things that you can also explore would be pre-marriage workshop. I think that's a lot out there that's available, because I think that would really help you to explore and analyze some of the things that we talk about. And I think this would really help you to decide whether this is the right way forward. So in fact, I have friends who have gone through pre-marriage counseling, and after that they decide not to get married. And that's okay, because, you know, like they have just saved themselves like years and years of heartache. But of course, there are also some couples, they went through pre-marriage counseling, and then they do have some issues to work out, and they worked it out during that counseling itself, and now they are having like an awesome marriage. I mean, like they have been married for like, I think, you know, more than 15 years now and still counting. Okay, so I think other than pre-marriage counseling or pre-marriage workshop that, you know, like couples can attend, like maybe you do not have time, or like it's just something maybe you're not so comfortable with for whatever reason. I think something else you can do is to check out this I think 36 questions on New York Times. Like when it first came out, it was a really big thing. I think it's a very great number of questions that really help you to get to know each other much, much better. Because I think sometimes when people are dating, like we don't talk about some things that might be very important when it comes to a marriage. Yeah. If not, just, you know, like really look at the areas of values, you know, that's very important to you. So obviously different people, you know, like values different things, but I think there are certain things that are big ones and definitely would come out. So like family is one thing, you know, like do you want to have kids, you know, do you not want to have kids, how many kids do you want to have. Next definitely is like financial. I think, you know, like research definitely has shown that a lot of marriages break down because they were not able to agree about money. Okay, so like how are you going to handle the money? Are you going to have joint accounts? Are you going to like have separate accounts but still have a account that's joint? How are you going to pay for bills? I think for me, when I got married, I was very clear and very adamant. Like this is a deal breaker for me. Like I definitely want us to have completely joint accounts. And fortunately, you know, my husband, having seen how things have worked out, you know, with my parents, he said, okay, that's a good idea. And we managed to work that out. So you do not want to like be married and then only deal with this. It can get very ugly. A religion is a big thing. So again, you know, it's not necessary that both of you need to be in the same religion. But let's say if you are in different religions and then after that you have kids, so what is going to happen? Like whose religion do the kids follow? Like, you know, like really all the areas of life that is very important to you. So same thing. I think for this question is something that's no right or wrong answer. So I want to share with you my personal experience. I actually brought this up 6 months into a relationship, and then I was only 20 years old then. So I think a lot of people will be like, what? That's crazy. But I think for me, I'm a person who is like, I do not want to waste my time with relationships that's not going anywhere. So like, even though of course I don't expect to get married then, I was still studying, but I just want to make sure that this is a relationship that both of us are on the same page, you know, like that we are not just dating for fun, you know, it's not just casual dating, but we are looking for something that's more serious. So I think this is very important. Like, so there are 5 different stages of a relationship, and different people go through these 5 stages in a different timeline. So for certain people, they might go through it maybe in 3 months. Some people might go through it in 5 years. So the five stages would be like attraction, getting to know you, exclusivity, and then you have intimacy, and then you have engagement. So I think the question we are asking is like, when do we get to like the fifth stage, which is engagement? So like what I've mentioned, it's just very important to always check back and make sure that both of you are at the right stage, because sometimes like someone might think that they are at stage 4, but the other person think that actually they are still at stage 2. So always check back, don't just assume. Okay. And then when both of you are similarly at stage 4, then that is really a good time to then like talk about like settling down, or talking about the intentions. I think sometimes it's not even about like just like talking about marriage, but really talking about intentions. I think that's very important. And also one important tip for all the ladies out there who's listening to this, like there was this social scientist, in a sense, he wrote a book, and then he actually like got people to like stand outside the registry of marriage there in US. And then for every single couple that comes out, then he just like he or like the surveyor will ask like, so who brought up marriage first? And the answer is that 80% is brought up by the woman. Okay. And then there's another maybe 9% who say not sure, but then the woman say chances are it's me. Okay. So I think what we are just trying to say here is like, maybe there's a 10% that is brought up by the guy. Okay. So I think if you're a lady and you're just waiting there forever for him to just go buy the ring by himself, or like to like just pop the question, you might be very disappointed. Like I think it's important to be able to just open up the question. So a lot of times, like the biggest problem when it comes to boy-girl relationship, I feel, is really the fear of rejection. Okay, so this is a big thing. Even like when it comes to asking for a first date. So like I say, we do surveys like every year. And it's like we ask like the guy and the girl, like both men and women, who should ask the other person out on a first date. The women say they prefer the man to do it. The men say they don't mind whoever who does it. So what does this mean? Like nobody's going to ask anybody lah, because the woman is waiting. The guy is like, okay, well, now equality, women can also do it. Then maybe that's why like we are not getting like many dates or many marriages or many kids. So I think the fear of rejection is so big. It's like the lady might be thinking, oh, I don't want to do it because like, maybe he might reject me. The guy is also thinking, it's like, oh, I also don't want to ask because she might reject me. So I think maybe we just want to make things easier for everybody. Okay, so like let's not just keep waiting on each other, because we might actually be missing out on a lot of great opportunities. Because if you're at the stage where both of you are in a stable relationship, and like what I mentioned just now, you have already gone through all the 5 stages. There's getting to know you, there's attraction, that's exclusivity, there's intimacy. You have gone through all the 4 stages, and everybody is like, okay, I think we're on the same page. We have met our parents, we have met our friends, everybody gets along, like we have talked to both parties, like nobody have given any red flags. Then yeah, maybe the girl just want to offer some hints to the guy, so that the guy know that if I'm going to pop the question, like I'm not going to get a big fat no. So yes, so all the best to all the couples out there who's like still struggling with like, should I ask or should I not ask? So the answer is, I always say, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is no lor. But what's the best thing that can happen? Okay, so on average, based on what we have seen with our couples, they usually date between 1.5 to 2 years before they get married. So I think this is a very normal timeline that people usually take to go through the 5 stages of relationship that we have talked about. I think another thing that is a big part is also depending on how old the client is, or even the singer is. So for myself, I met my then boyfriend, now husband, when I was 20 years old. So obviously I didn't get married at 22. I actually got married at 25. So I think we also need to look at which life stage the person is at the time. This is a question that many of my clients have probably gone through, because like when we met them, they would have maybe come out of a very long relationship, like maybe a 7 years relationship, 8 years relationship, and then it's very sad because if you think about it, chances are they might have met in their early 20s or maybe mid 20s, and then they have spent like close to 10 years of their life with this person, and then this person then say that, oh sorry, marriage is not on the cards, or children are not on the card. So I think please do not wait until like 10 years later to find this out. So that's why I've mentioned it's very important to just check in, always check in, even in the early part of the relationship. It's like always check in whether you are both on the same page, because you want to know like right from the beginning. You don't want to know like 10 years later. It's like if you already know from the beginning, then you just move on, because like maybe that's not something you can live with. But again, I think this is something we need to ask ourselves. It's like, is this something that I can live with? I know of people who like maybe they started off with like, yes, I want to get married, I want to have kids. But when they met the right person, and then this person just do not want to get married and do not want to have kids, and it's something that they're able to accept. Like they are accepting it full-heartedly. Like they have no grudges. They do not resent it. They are so in sync with this person. They really love this person so much. They really just want to spend the rest of their life with this person, and they are fine with it. Okay, so I think if that's you, that's great. Like I think we are happy for you. However, if that is not something that you can live with, then you need to love yourself more. Okay, so I always tell my ladies, because I mean, again, not to say it cannot happen to guys, but it usually happen to ladies more. I always tell my ladies, it's like at the end of the day, you need to love yourself more. So if for you, like you want to get married and you want to have kids, then you need to put it on the table. And then once you put it on the table, like, and the person say, okay, this is not the right time yet. I want to earn my first million first. I want to buy my first condominium first. I want to get my promotion to C-level first, whatever, right? So then give the person a timeline, give the person a deadline, give the person an ultimatum. Okay, so fine, like how long is this going to take? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, right? And then you need to be comfortable with that timeline. But once the timeline is hit, you must be able to walk away, because ultimately you are, if not, you are going to spend another 3 years of this person, another 3 years on this person, and then you add up the years, like suddenly you're 10 years older, and then this person just say, oh, I already told you what, I already told you that time I'm not planning to get married, I'm not planning to have kids. It's not as if I didn't tell you, I told you. So it's important that self-love is the most important. You have to love yourself first, love yourself enough to give that ultimatum. So love languages is so important. I mean, it's so simple, but it's really so important. Like, I just want to share a very quick story with you guys. So many years ago, I was giving a workshop, and part of it was about love language. So it was a public workshop. And then at the end of it, like this lady, I think she's in her 50s, she came up to me with like tears in her eyes, and she's like, oh my goodness, Violet, I'm so glad I came to this workshop today, because I finally know today that my husband loves me. It's crazy. So I mean, she has been married for like at least 20 plus years, and all this while she didn't know that her husband loved her, because her love language, like maybe like many of us out there, or maybe like women, like mine as well, like it's words of affirmation. So for her, it's really like hearing, like the husband saying I love you, or like the husband saying like, oh, you look so pretty today, like you're looking great, like, or just praising her and things like that. But that is not her husband's love language. So she never hear any of this for the last 20 over years. Her husband's love language is actually acts of service. So like in the last 20 over years, the husband is constantly like, like helping out in the kitchen, always like changing a light bulb when it's spoiled without being asked, is always like sending her everywhere, sending her to work, picking her up from work. And she's like, oh my goodness, it's like those like are all the signs, like all the things that my husband is doing to show me that he loves me. I think how can we know this now and apply it to our lives, right? I think first and foremost is really awareness. So if you do not already know your love language, please just go to the website. It's free, like do the love language test to know your own love language. And of course, if you can, like this is a great exercise that you can do with your partner as well. Like get your partner to do the same, and then from there you can both know what your love languages are. And from there, just start practicing. Like practicing to express your love in the other person's love language. So, for example, like my husband's love language is touch. So sometimes I don't really like to hold hands because it's so sweaty, right? In like Singapore, I don't know. I think my palms like maybe just sweat all the time, and I just feel like it's very sticky and it's very sweaty. But I put up with it because I know like his love language is touch, or like sometimes I'll just like touch his head, like so. These are just small things like I adjust because I know that that's his love language. So same thing for him. Like he tells me he loves me like every day, even on days I'm like very unlovable, honestly. So because he knows that this is my love language, I think it takes practice, it takes time, it takes effort, but the changes, the transformation is just going to be amazing. So I think it's really worth it to first know it and then practice it. So I just want to share with you this story that I read about, and I just think it's like the most amazing tip ever. Like I think it is really like the secret tip in a relationship. So I remember reading this article, and then this journalist was interviewing this man who has been married for 50 years. So he is 70 years old. So married for like most of his life, 50 years. And then the journalist asked this old man, so what is the secret to a long-lasting relationship or marriage? And then the answer, okay, please listen up. You have to probably listen very attentively because when I first read it, I didn't get it immediately. So his answer is, we both did not fall out of love at the same time. I repeat again. We both did not fall out of love at the same time. So when I read this, I was like, oh my goodness, that is so amazing. Like, it's so true. Because I think, we are just so intoxicated with this whole love, romance, like dramas. And, we are always looking for that like that connection, that like passion. But the truth of the matter is that when we are in a relationship, when we are in a marriage, there's lots of ups and downs. That's a lot of challenges. There are a lot of times probably you want to throw in the towel. There's a lot of times that I mentioned, like when I'm not lovable or like my partner is not lovable. And the problem is when a lot of people think that love is a feeling, because all the love songs out there is always like love is a feeling, right? But love is actually not a feeling. Love is actually a choice. Love is actually a commitment. So like what this old man has shared is that it's because at every point when things are getting so ugly, things are getting so difficult, it's like someone is always holding on. Someone is always like, okay, we make this commitment. We decided to get married to each other, like through thick and thin, through like, everything. We're just going to stick with each other. And someone wanted it enough at that point and just held on. And that's actually the secret of a long-lasting relationship and marriage. The way I see it, marriage is really like a plant. Okay, so like we cannot just leave it there and expect it just to grow by itself. So ultimately, it needs water, it needs sunshine, it needs fertilizer to make it to continue to grow and to blossom. So I think, the relationship that you're in right now, the marriage you're in right now, the outcome that you would like to see is really the effort and the time that you put into it. So whoever you are or whatever you're doing right now, I wish you all the best and I hope you continue to stay in love.